Yeah,
Live,
how
man.
have you
Yeah,
been?
I'm good, man. Been a minute to be fair. We actually haven't chopped up in a while.
No, for sure, hundred
How you
percent,
doing?
100%, 100%. I'm not too bad, not too bad. We've kind of moved a few things around. Literally, in these past like 2, 3 months, I think with everything kind of happening across Meta, across branding, all this type of stuff, there's like so many changes
Yeah.
since like January with like AI and this and that. And now I think in the position where I'm just trimming off
Things
all
are
the
moving
flipping
so
fluff.
quickly now, innit?
Like, yeah, do you know what I mean? And it's so easy to kind of seem as though, oh, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, you need to also be doing this, you need to have a bit of this going on, you need to also have that. Where it's like, no, just trim off all the
Yeah,
fat and just streamline and get good at this
exactly.
exact thing. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, just limiting all the distractions that's kind of taken away from. Right now, I do think to kind of go straight into it is like creative strategy is like the most important thing for a brand to scale. Aside from product, aside from everything else, creative. If you can dial in on creative strategy itself, everything you can then sort out operations. You can then sort out retention. You
Yeah,
can sort out everything else, but none of that actually matters unless creative strategy and that creative flywheel
yeah,
is flipping down in. So that's kind of all I'm literally focusing on
definitely. I
nowadays,
think
really.
I saw something recently that was like, ideas are important, but like every idea you have,
Yeah,
every product can sell. And yeah, certain categories will have a bigger addressable market than another. But in general, you're talking from like a
yeah,
zero to a couple million a year, anything can work. And
yeah.
some,
Anything
some
can
brands
work.
might stop at
Yeah,
10 million a year, but every brand
yeah.
can work to a degree. So I
To a
completely
degree,
agree
hundred
that
percent.
like creative strategy is definitely the most important thing. And you were just to like add on to what you were saying before, like you see these frameworks of like, oh, this creative framework, oh, let's do AI big campaign shoots, but we'll do it with AI so it doesn't cost anything. Oh,
Yeah,
let's go back and build
yeah.
community because that's the one thing that AI can't.
Yeah, yeah. 1 second, 1 second, sorry, 1 second, 1 second. Not to even take away from anything. but yeah,
Um,
you were saying.
yeah, like there's so many different people saying
What?
different things, and it's trying to cut through the noise. And I think the main thing is just understanding what works for your brand, because what works for one brand might not work for another
Yeah,
brand. And like we always say, everything works. It's just trying to do it in the right way and trying to actually look at the data for your brand. And that's actually one thing that I did want to speak about. Like, a lot of people make ads and make businesses that they like rather than looking at the data and
yeah,
making the creatives that the customer likes, that the customer actually wants to see. So,
yeah,
and to a degree, every business in the world has to start with something that you like, or otherwise, how else do you get started?
yeah,
But if I go and make 10
yeah,
creatives and if I only made creatives based on things that I thought were cool, then I can only sell to people that
yeah,
think the exact same thing as me. Whereas if I look at the data and I go,
yeah,
okay, that isn't what I thought would have been the best one, or that isn't the thing that I would have chosen, but this is what's working, so I need to figure out why it's working and figure out how to replicate that, rather than just making things that
yeah.
you think are cool.
That you 100%, and kind of touching on that, it's like that's actually something that's probably a couple of months ago been my biggest like changing idea, changing mentality. Where usually when people start brands, you're starting a brand that resonates the most of you, and that's how a lot of people kind of get into building their own brands, right? However, even from the brand side, there needs to be an element of research in terms of what do
On.
people actually want. And yes, there's a large part of what I could want is also what a lot of people could also want. But you also kind of need a way to somewhat validate that, in the sense that what a lot of brand owners tend to do is they tend to over leverage on their own personal wants in comparison to what the customer actually want. And you see that from the way they build the product, from the way they make the content, from the way they market the product. It all starts from the founder first. Whereas that's usually the biggest disconnect. Where if you'd actually built the product based off of what the market wants, you'd see a lot more success simply because it's just gonna resonate a lot more. There's gonna be things that there's gonna be things that from a personal standpoint that you like, that you can still inject into the brand, that you can still inject into the product, that you can still inject into the marketing. However, it needs to start from the customer first. And that customer first approach is kind of something that I'm really big on, from the product, from the marketing, from everything, where it's like, even when we're doing shoots, when we're doing brand shoots, doing brand shoots that really feed the ego of the founder, but isn't the type of content that the
Yeah.
audience wants to see. And sometimes the type of content that the audience wants to see, the easiest way to do that is to become the audience, to scroll through social media and what are they already watching, and then finding a way to insert the brand into an already happening conversation, then trying to create something new. And sometimes it's not even new, it's just what you want. It becomes like a selfish act, whereas it's like, no, let's start from the customer first, and that changes everything. Right from, okay, should we add this to the product, or should we design it in this way? Whereas like, if we're making it for this type of customer, the customer comes
And
first,
how, so
realistically.
what strategies are you currently using to actually figure out what the customer wants? Like, it's easy to say that, but how, what are you actually looking
Yeah,
at? How are you finding that out? Are you actually doing a post survey? Are you calling the customers after they place an order? Like, what are you actually doing to understand who your customer is, what the customer wants, and then using that information to go and create a better ad for that specific person?
I think one of the best ways that we've kind of been seeing is, okay, so let's actually break down the product itself. What does the product do? What does it help with? Right? And then from there, we're then able to see, from what the product helps with, what type of person would purchase this product. And then we then basically dial in on that individual or those individuals, and we try to see what world are they living in, what type of products are they currently using. Now, what a lot of people tend to do in terms of competition is they're looking at like direct competitors, where, okay, we are a sleepwear brand, so let's look for other sleepwear brands, where it's like, realistically, you look for every other brand that speaks to your customer that they could potentially also buy from. So for instance, that might be, you sell eye masks, but realistically, someone that cares about their sleep also tracks it on a Garmin or tracks it on a Whoop. And there's all these tangential products that sit within this brand world, because a lot of people, you tend to realize that all social media is it can be an echo chamber for some people. So they kind of sit within these
Areas.
small pockets with social media.
Like, yeah,
What
like
did you say,
certain
sorry?
pockets, certain areas of social media.
Yeah, of social media, where everything that they see, and that's what the algorithm is made to be like. Like, Instagram invests billions, TikTok invests billions into making sure that the algorithm is tailored to a way that keeps you on the platform. So you end up seeing everything that resonates with you. So the first thing is trying to understand exactly who this customer is. What other products are they currently using that sits within their brand world? Whether that might be an Apple Watch, whether that might be they sit more on the luxury side, so they use things like Rimowa, they use things like Dior. Like, exactly what other tangential brands are they? What space are they sitting in? That can be from Reddit researchers, that can be from Facebook group researchers. A gold mine recently has been from comments, from seeing what people are commenting under these kind of pockets. And then from there, you're then able to see that, okay, this is kind of what the cost. And obviously, we've got the likes of Claude, where we're able to take all of that data and kind of map out exactly what types of personas, yeah, where these people kind of sit. So let's say if we're looking at traveling, if we're selling a travel accessory, we're looking at, okay, we've got the affordable traveler who does it on a budget, but we've then got someone who flies first class who does it with a lot of luxury items. They've got a lot more products that they're able to use. They've got a lot more free time. So you kind of are able to build these miniature brand worlds of exactly
Yeah.
where's your customer sitting. And then from there, that's when you're then trying to insert the brand or insert the product into that brand world, rather than remove them and give them something else that they're not already taking. And that's something that we're kind of seeing. So to answer your question directly, it's a blended of so many different touch points, the content that they're consuming, what's going viral in that space. Social media is such a big one. Where we're looking at um, TikTok, TikTok videos, yeah, TikTok videos. It might just be TikTok carousels, but there's all these little pockets that you can really dive into. So one of them being skincare, where people are struggling with skincare. There's so many Facebook groups where people are dropping in, oh, I'm struggling with this. This is what's kind of not working. This is what they've tried. This is what they haven't tried. You're then just basically able to expand on that, and before you know it, you, you know at the back of your mind before you've actually used. Because I think right now with the likes of AI, people are trying to cut corners and
Yeah.
just get
But
AI
then
to do it,
people, they
and
don't even
let's just
understand
get
it
AI to do
themselves.
research.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And usually that will work for a certain point, but when you actually think like the customer and understand what the customer is going through, it then becomes easier off the top of your head. Not only can you guide AI a little bit better and tell it, no, that's not right, or yes, that is right, but you then are able to at least, to a certain degree, sit in the customer standpoint and understand how can we insert this product into today's
100%.
conversation.
So to sort of summarize what you've just said, so that I understand it fully, because I think I do a similar process. Is one, you understand your product and where it actually fits in the market,
Yeah,
and then instead of just direct
yeah,
copying what another brand is doing, you look at other brands that are in a similar
yeah,
space. So if I'm selling running
yeah,
glasses, they're probably going to buy running shoes. So what running shoes are there in the market?
yeah,
How are they
yeah.
speaking to their customers? What are the comments saying? All of that sort of stuff. You're taking all of this information, and then you're trying to insert your brand into the world that that customer is sitting in. So you're looking at negative comments or positive
Exactly
comments
that.
and going, okay, I'm going to use this comment or this concept or this idea, and I'm going to create an ad specifically for this specific person in this specific world. Launch the ad,
Yeah,
get the data, and do it again and again and again. Is that sort of right? Yeah.
exactly that. Yeah, yeah,
Definitely. And I
exactly
think
that,
that's
exactly
very
that.
similar to sort of what we're doing. And that's how you can come up with like new concepts that aren't just rinse and repeats. Because obviously there are certain
Yeah,
ads that
yeah,
you know are going to work, like a flat lay in fashion. You're going to do it.
yeah,
It's going to be done.
yeah,
But how do I make
yeah,
my flat lay different from everybody else? And that's like certain brands will do
yeah,
flat lays, but they will have like props around the flat lay. And it's just a little thing, but it makes it stand out
yeah,
compared to everybody else. And then the
exactly.
piece, the accessories that you put with this specific outfit. For example, I could be selling a black t-shirt, and you see a brand, they might be speaking about the black t-shirt, but selling it of how well
Hmm.
it fits. Oh, it fits you perfectly around
Yeah,
the arm, so it's really nice. But another person might sell that same black
yeah,
t-shirt and say, and put it on the floor and have a suitcase next to it with a passport, and it's like, oh, this black
yeah,
t-shirt is the perfect one to use when I go to the airport. And it's the same black t-shirt in two
exactly. Yeah,
different formats, targeting two different people for two different reasons to purchase.
exactly that. And I think that a takeaway from that is it can just be in the subtlety. Sometimes it doesn't need to
Big
be like
headlines.
huge things that.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It really can just be in the subtlety where it just shows that you're inserting it into what the
yeah,
customer's already accustomed to, and that can be a few brands that I've seen do that really well. Is a brand like 33M, where even down to the
mhm,
music that they choose, it's very congruent with the type of things that one align with the brand, but also align with the customer that they're
exactly.
selling it to, realistically. So yeah, and it's all these little things that kind of build that brand world and that brand idea that shows that you are speaking to the right customer, you are aligned with your customer. So
And
exactly that,
it's
exactly
what you
that.
just said as well, like doing it in the subtleties of it, because like people don't want to be sold to. So if I'm selling like
Yes.
33M, like they're selling smart, fashionable outfits for people, and it's like I could
Yeah.
either put at the top of that graphic, oh, smart, fashionable outfits. That's never going to sell to somebody. You have to sell the lifestyle, you have to
Yeah.
sell the vision, you have to sell the aesthetic, because somebody's going to be like, that's desirable to me. I want that. I love this brand, and then eventually I'm going to
Yeah.
purchase. And the other thing that I think is
Yeah.
another as part of creative strategy is like repetition is so important, much more important than people realize. It's doing it over and
Yeah.
over again and actually being in the market long enough for you to actually receive the results. It's so easy to do it once, but to do it
Yes.
over and over and over again, and actually repeating the same process and constantly selling the lifestyle, selling the vision, selling the identity of what this brand is trying to achieve, you have to be in it for such a long period of time to actually then start achieving the compounded results.
100%. And that's a conversation that I've recently been having with a few partners, founders, where realistically, they think it's this kind of overnight thing that if you just do it once, that yes, you've built the brand. You do a big photo shoot, and yes, you've built the brand. Where That's not exactly what builds brand. It's the
Yeah.
consistency in the smaller things that shows what the brand stands for and what the brand is about, and doing it for a long enough period in time that after you've done it for so long, that's subconsciously taken in as this is what the brand is. And it's not just one big shoot, it's not just one big thing that kind of happens when we look at, let's say, the likes of like a popular streetwear brand like the likes of like a Cortez. It's the fact that what they're doing now is no different than what they've been doing since 2019, 2020. They've just done it gradually at a larger scale. But realistically, the reason why we know Coty's for the brand that it is today is because of the consistency and how long they've done it for. And that's like one of the biggest things that, like you've said, it's that repetitive nature, but
Yeah.
just being consistent in knowing that this is what the brand stands for and just doing it for a long enough period in time. That's where you then see the
Yeah.
compounds later down the
It's
line.
100% true. We get people that will speak to and they'll be like, "Oh, why is my brand not doing this? Or why is my brand different to this?" And then you look at the numbers and it's like, well, they're posting 3 times a day, every single day. And you're posting once
Yeah.
or twice a week.
Yeah.
Like that is why they're doing more than
Yeah.
you. They've been doing it for
Yeah.
longer. They're not better. It's not higher
Yeah.
quality, but quality
Yeah.
now. This is another thing.
Yeah.
Quality nowadays is not as important. Quality nowadays is not as important, and what I mean
Yeah.
by that is like polished, super, like amazing ads, for example. It doesn't matter anymore. People want to see volume, and you
Yeah.
can have this brand image, and you
Yeah.
can have this all this polished content on your social media. I get it. Brand building definitely has its positioning, but in
Yeah.
reality, Meta
Yeah.
now rewards volume and variety, and they people want to. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how polished it is. People want to be seeing the product for what it is. And it can be really rough, ugly,
Yeah.
native ads. They're the ones that are actually working now. It's more just the volume of it and having variety and doing it over and over and over again and looking at the data, making the iterations and then going back to it.
100%, 100%. We'll probably touch on this later down the line when we kind of go a bit more in depth
Yeah,
in terms of creative strategy. But yeah, 100%. Like the biggest thing when it comes to volume, the reason why Meta prioritizes volume and the reason why Meta prioritizes variety isn't necessarily just for the sake of volume and variety. It's because of all these
yeah,
smaller
they're
pockets of people that receive. Do you know what I'm saying? They receive a piece of a brand in very, very different ways. If all you do is high quality production style videos, I don't see high quality production style videos on my social media page. That's just because that's not what resonates to me. That's only going to resonate to a small pocket of people that go on social media to see that. And I'd probably say that that probably resonates with like videographers, people who really kind of
yeah,
really like seeing high quality style videos and appreciate that. But your average customer probably doesn't. They might appreciate something more like a flat lay. They might appreciate something that's more like a screenshot of a story. They might appreciate these ugly forms of creative that they see on the day to day, but it's more native to what they're seeing. So realistically, you could have a banger that's high production, but unless you've got variety in the way that you're communicating that same concept, a large portion of people on social media just are never going to see that piece of content. So you do want as much variety of something that you see as a winner, just so that it can target the small pockets of people who, like me, I might see more UGC style videos, but you might see more founder style videos. Someone else might see a different style videos, maybe flat lays, and you just want to have that variety just so that
yeah.
Meta
And
can
I
target.
think the people that do that the best are the person that are like the Hudson method and Comfort and how they're going about it at the moment, and they're
Yeah,
just going all in on building an army and like they're his
yeah,
mindset towards sort of scaling a brand nowadays. It's like you can't scale a brand anymore without an army. You need an army of people that
yeah,
would live and die for your brand, that believe in the vision, that are
yeah,
all in on it. They love the products and they're willing to make as as much content as the brand needs because they get compensated for it.
yeah,
And yeah, they've
yeah,
just gone all in on UGC, ugly ads, but also having such a they have a clear vision of what they're actually making these ads for. They know every video,
yeah.
like okay, I need to make an ad on this specific angle or this specific angle. They're not just throwing shit at the wall. They're actually creating really
Yeah,
high quality UGC in the most ridiculous volume. I can't even understand how much
Yeah,
volume they're creating, and it's because they've built a
yeah,
brand off the back of quality products and selling this vision of getting back behind the brand that they're trying to build, and yeah, that
yeah.
level of like volume of quality to push out to their audience is crazy to see, and even being able to implement
Insane. Yeah.
10%, 1% of that into a normal brand in the UK, you're probably going to see very good results from it.
100%, and I kind of think that's exactly where creative strategy is going next, if I'm honest. Simply because I think we are coming, as you kind of highlighted earlier, we are coming away from a lot of this polished style content, and realistically, when it now comes to what's the next era of creative strategy, it's real people speaking about a product in a real way that resonates with a lot of people. And I think the Hudson method is something
Yeah,
that we're adopting now, both as an agency and as a brand, where we're looking to onboard creators and do that similar thing. But realistically, with the likes of AI now, people are becoming more and more and more hyper aware of AI. And sometimes I'll kind of scroll through comments, and the moment someone sees or senses that this is AI, that can turn them off. Realistically, it could be a great product speaking to exactly what they want, but they'll scroll by simply because they don't want to see that. They want to see real people speaking about a product that they've really used and how this has benefited them. Realistically, but yeah, we'll kind of touch on that a little bit later on
definitely,
the line.
definitely. I just think UGC is. I'd agree as well. I think UGC is the way that it's going down. Being able to get quantity of quality creatives, and whether that's UGC,
Yeah.
whether
Mhm.
that's product focused stuff, whether that's lifestyle stuff, that is the route that we're
Yeah.
going down. Very simple to make, iPhone shot videos that you can make in mass quantity. And then the best way to organize that, just putting it into files, using it as the organic, creating mix and match videos, and just
Yeah.
testing on a wide variety,
Yeah.
looking at what's working and then doubling down on the stuff that's working while also looking at what other brands are doing, like you said, from other brand worlds, taking that as inspiration and then implementing it into your own brand as the new testing styles that you want to make. So while you're also doubling down on stuff that's already working, you're also trying to find the next winning ad immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing when it comes to creative strategy now, like bringing it back. It's like in the space where e-commerce as a whole, ecom as a whole, and brand building is, it's what people say stage five of like market saturation. Anyone that can start a brand, like the barriers to entry is extremely
Mm.
low right now. So everyone is getting into it in this current time period. It's no longer like 2016 where you didn't need to do all this angle stuff. You could have just, oh,
Stuff
this does this, and people had never seen.
like
Do you know what I mean? People had never seen that type of ad before, and it's like, oh, I've been looking to buy water, now I can buy it online. You don't need to talk about the different angles. It's just now available. Whereas now, because we've gone through all those levels, it's then gotten to a stage where everything became extremely high quality, and then it's now coming back full circle where not only does it need to be real, it also needs to be there's a lot of thought that goes behind like the volume and the quality, like because you keep mentioning quality and that's such a big thing where it's like it is making sure that as much as you're hitting that volume you're also hitting that quality, and whatever that quality looks like, it doesn't have to, quality doesn't
yeah,
need to equal high production. It's just making sure that it is quality of whatever the internal markers of quality are. And it is a little bit more complicated than I'd probably say. Like I think over the last 6 to 8 months, creative strategy has been this new thing, with the likes of Andromeda. Whereas now everyone's looking for good creative strategists. Whereas like 5 years ago, people didn't.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was more
yeah.
the media buying. People are looking for great media buys, because you could just buy the media. You didn't need all
Mm.
these angles and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that we're kind of seeing right now, where it's like 2026 creative strategy. There is It's a low barrier to entry for anyone to get into, but there's a high benchmark for you to actually be classed as a good creative strategist that can scale brands to six,
Yeah,
seven
it's like
things on to.
I see a thing today that said like everything's already been done, every idea has been taken. So how
Yeah,
do you do it cheaper? How do you do
yeah,
it better? How do you do it differently?
yeah.
Looking at what's already in the market. If we sat here and said, oh, let's start an activewear brand. Oh, sorry, no, activewear's taken. We can't do that. It's just you're going to be there all day trying to been done.
All day. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
inventing something is so much more difficult than finding something that's already working to a degree, analyzing a gap in the market and going,
yeah,
okay, I can market this differently by
yeah.
doing X, Y, and Z. And then testing it, getting the
X, Y, and
data
Z. Yeah,
back, iterating on it and doing it again, doing it again, doing it again. And the
yeah,
cycle just
yeah,
never stops. And I
yeah,
think that's why creative
yeah,
strategy is so like valuable at the moment because
yeah,
everything's already been done. Everything that I've already been said. It's just this big cycle. So the creative strategists are the people that have to try and figure out why should somebody buy my product over the markets.
the markets. Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. So, what would you say your current um, like, let's say you've got a new brand now. How do you enter? Like, what's your process in terms of creative strategy? How do you section out? Like, what's your process from research to ideation? How does
I
that
would
look like
definitely
for you
say
currently?
it's very similar to what you said, but the difference for me is
Mm-hmm.
in fashion is people buy a product because of the brand. They're buying into the brand. So you have to portray
Yeah.
the angle as we've spoken about through the brand rather than a new
Mm-hmm.
mechanism. Everybody knows what a jumper is. Everybody
Yeah.
knows what a Henley t-shirt is. Everybody knows what a cargo short
Yeah.
is. And yeah, there are certain products that do better. Like right now, cargo shorts and long sleeve waffles, they're printing at the moment. But that's just
Yeah.
a trend. And if you have them,
Mm-hmm.
great, you're going to probably do quite well.
Yeah.
Um, but if I was to be starting a new brand, or when I take on a new brand that we work with, we still have to understand the product, and not just the product. We have to understand the brand.
Mm-hmm.
What is the brand actually standing for? Why does the brand exist? What are they trying to achieve? Why are they different from every other brand? And these are all just hypotheses. It's not a fact, it's an opinion. And that's one thing that I've really had to like understand, because at the fundamental level, a tracksuit is a tracksuit. But you have to, as a brand
Yeah.
owner, really genuinely truly believe that your tracksuit is different from everybody else's for these specific reasons. It might be because you're building a
Yeah.
community, it might be because the quality is better. There's a million reasons as to why, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really understanding what is different about your brand and what you're trying to build that's different to somebody else's. So the first step would definitely be really trying to understand and paint the picture of what your brand is and what you're trying to achieve and what you're going to the market with. And then from there, it is creative diversity, I would say, is probably the main thing. And there's a million different ways to have diverse creatives. But say, for example, you're an activewear brand. Every single activewear brand in the world has already done a shoot at a running track. So how can I do an activewear
Yeah.
brand that's different? Well, I could do an activewear brand that you could wear in every day. So I'm going to go and do shoots in
Mm-hmm.
gritty car parks and stairwells. And that's the vision that I have for my brand, for my activewear brand, rather than it being an activewear brand that you wear at just to go running in. So it's like trying to understand that and then build out the brand vision based on what you're trying to achieve and then going and executing on that. So whether it is flat lays, whether it is hanging rail videos, whether it's on body product focused stuff, all these different formats, they're important, and you want to have as many of them as possible, and you want to be able to get these
Mm-hmm.
high quality and a high quantity, and then editing them up and then pushing them out to the audience. That would probably be
Yeah.
the main strategy that I would go at, and just making sure that every single creative that you're doing is on brand and it is within the picture of the brand world that you're trying to create.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when it comes to, let's say, for someone watching this, let's say they're at a place where they can't afford for someone to go and do this for them. Like, they can't afford to get the likes of an agency, they can't afford to get a creative strategist. What would you say that they should do for their brand to go from that
So I
zero
think
to
I
one,
think the first
essentially?
goal is you want to go organic first. For a fashion brand, you want organic first.
Yeah.
And between 0 and 10K a
Mm-hmm.
month, in reality, it is just volume. You need to do everything. And it doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's if something doesn't work. It doesn't matter if something's ugly. The main priority from 0 to 10K a month, and you want to do everything possible to get yourself to that number. For 10K a month as a clothing brand, if you
Yeah.
can do 10K a month organically, you're when you do use that content in paid ads, it's gonna probably double quite quickly if you can get to that number organically first. And that's what I would do. I would just have an idea of what you're trying to achieve. What is the brand vision? Get one of your mates, get an iPhone, and just go out and shoot as much content as you can. Whether that is on body product
Yeah.
stuff, whether that's flat lay stuff, all in brand aware locations, and just push content as much as you possibly can. On TikTok, on social media, trial reels is another thing that a lot of the brands that we're working with at the moment are getting very big success in. They're looking at this as a little this is a little golden nugget, to be fair, but all of the successful content that people have achieved in the past, viral videos and whatnot, they're taking that, making a small iteration, and absolutely blasting it on trial reels. Different captions, different audios, a different hook, a different first 3 seconds, and they're posting like 10 videos a day on trial reels, waiting for one to go viral and then putting it on their main page. So that's a little golden nugget for the brands that are watching, because it doesn't affect brand at all, because you're only pushing out to people that have never seen your brand before when you post on trial reels. So essentially what I'm trying to say is from 0 to 10K, it is just volume, organic first. Send the product out to creators. That's another big one. If you have a budget, whatever budget that you would have put into meta ads, use that budget and send it to creators and get them to post organic content for you, and just give them the product and say, you just go get creative with it. Here's a bunch of videos that I like. Here's a bunch of videos that I think relate to our brand. You go and get busy with it. You go and get creative with it. And that might be 10 pieces a week, 20 pieces a week, whatever you can afford as a brand owner. Don't spend your money on ads. Spend your money sending out that product to creators. That's gonna be where you're able to actually build an organic presence, and you're tapping into other people's audiences rather than trying to build your own audience. But you still want to be doing that as well. And that would be it. Literally just volume. Once you get to that 10K a month mark, 15K a month mark, you're gonna have a much better understanding of what your brand is, the creators that are doing very well for you, what people want to see, what your customers want, because you're going to have a lot of customers, and that's when you can then be a lot more tactical on the content that you're making, what's working, and doubling down on the stuff that's working to get yourself to the next milestone, which is probably 50 to 100K. And that's when you're going to dabble into building out a bit of a team, going into meta ads and all of that side of stuff. But that's probably another topic.
Yeah, for sure. That was going to be my next question in terms of like, so from getting to that 0 to 1, that's what you need to be doing. What would you then say is the next stage for someone who is at that 10, 15K? What do they now need to be doing to then get to, let's say, 50 or
So I
100?
think the main thing would be, one, continuing the volume that you're already doing, but doing it more tactically, looking at the numbers, looking at the data, and going, okay, this content's working better than this content, so let's do more of that. But then also looking at your whole marketing as your marketing as a whole, and going, okay, we might be doing this, and this, but we're missing this. So we might be doing on body shots, and we might be doing flat lay videos. We've never done this specific style of video. We've never done rail videos. We've never worked with these specific models. We've never done lifestyle videos. So let's test this while also doubling down and creating a system to get volume of what's already working. And then the other thing is the creative that you're already using. If you're already using creators, then you want to be able to implement and like actually have solid deals with them where they're giving you content and creatives on a regular basis. So you want to cement better relationships with the people that you're already working with. Or on the other hand, say you got to where you are now without using creators, well then you want to tap into using creators. So it's basically looking at what you're already doing, looking at what you're not doing, testing what you're not doing, and building systems to double down on what you are doing. And the other thing, then putting ad spend behind the creatives that are working to increase what's already working and like sort of cement a bit more stability into your business. And that would probably be from 10 to 20K a month all the way up until 100K a month.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100% agree. And then from that 100k, I assume things then become a lot more tactical. What would you then say for the brands that roadmap? Now you're at 100k. What do you do after this? How do you
Yeah,
scale even further?
so it's funny because that's probably when it becomes team building and more volume of what's working and even more of it. And that's probably all the way up until like 500k. Between 100 and 500k, it will
Yeah,
just be a volume thing and trying to figure out a really clear system for your business to generate all this style of content, really double down on what's working, create more volume, and then actually being able to build up the budget to be able to go all in and spend more, like doubling, tripling budgets over a 1, 2, 3, 6, 12 month period. I would probably just say it's doing what you're already doing, but at a much larger standard, which then requires a team. You probably do need a video editor and a video shooter and a graphic designer helping you on a weekly basis to be able to actually provide the volume and really understand your brand. It's building a it's building it's building a brand world at that point. That might be when you do tap into
yeah,
a quarterly photo shoot and really try to build a vision for what you're trying to achieve, or you do go into brand building activities, or you do go into that side of things. But that's probably a much later date. And in reality, from zero to probably 500k a month, you can literally just scale off organic content, static ads, video editing, and creators. That can probably get you from zero all the way to 100 to 500k a month.
yeah, yeah. No, 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I think you've kind of broken that down quite well. When it comes to team structure on the fashion side, what would you say someone's looking at building a team? What would you say are the most important hires? And how would you go about kind
I
of
think
building that
one
team?
the amazing thing now that we're seeing with AI and with like all of the new infrastructures and softwares that are available to us, you can genuinely scale to a unlimited level, or maybe not unlimited, but to a very large level with a creative strategist, a graphic designer, and a video editor. Like just those three people alone
Yeah,
can probably take from the marketing side of
yeah,
things. I'm not talking about the people
yeah, yeah.
designing the clothes, all that. But
Other
just from
stuff.
a
Yeah, yeah,
marketing
of course, yeah.
perspective, you can genuinely have a creative strategist, a graphic designer, and a video editor, and a media buyer. Those four people can
Yeah,
take a brand to very, very, very high scale. Just that. And
yeah,
realistically,
yeah.
like there's two things. So I listened to a podcast from the guy that just sold Grooms for 1.2 billion.
Oh
And he
yes,
was
yeah, yeah,
saying
yeah,
he's
yeah.
got a team of like
Yeah.
25
Chase.
people. And the way that they do
Yeah,
it, this is really interesting. I've got a graphic designer and a video editor, so I'm not the best person to speak about when it comes to hiring, but what I'm understanding and what I find super interesting is like these pods. And this is what the the bigger agencies are doing, and this is also what like the ecom brands are doing. And they create pods of these four people: a creative strategist, a media buyer, a graphic designer, and a video editor. And they're literally competing the pods with each other to see who gets the best results. So for Groons, for example,
yeah,
he'll have this team of four people, this team of four people, this team of four people, and their goal is just to create ads for the business to scale the business, creating static ads, creating video ads, and launching them in the ads. And then they literally have leaderboards to see what team is doing the best and what's working, so the other pods can learn as well. And having that sort of competitive advantage of these little pods and little teams of people to create ads, I think it's just a method that works really well. And then the agencies, this is what they're doing to then, oh, we've got this pod and they service 5 clients, and we've got this pod and they service these 5 clients. And these little pods are the ways that it's really good for cash flow for agencies, because they know, okay, if I've got 10 clients that are paying me X amount on a performance fee and I have these fixed costs, if I lose a client, I can just put them back in there. And they have these mini agencies that are scaling a group of clients together as a team, and then you might have a client success manager, blah 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 blah. But I just think that's like a
yeah,
really interesting way to scale the ecom brands, and that's sort of what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build that team of a graphic designer, a video editor, a media buyer, and a creative strategist to be able to service a small group of like very fast scaling e-commerce brands, and just trying to really build a team that understand the brands that we're working with to best service and support their growth, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. I literally agree with every part of that. Where it's like, I think people tend to, on the marketing side, tend to overcomplicate exactly who and what they need. When realistically, all you do need is a creative strategist, media buyer, graphic designer, and a video editor, as kind of mentioned. Realistically, everything else you might then also need an army of creators, because it's the army of creators that create the content, but then you're then able to remix that and make that into so many different ways and so many different styles and formats with that one team. So yeah, 100%. In terms of the pod style and the pod systems, it's very much the easiest way to scale. And like you've mentioned, you kind of touched on it ever so slightly with AI. Whereas now, when you're actually equipping the graphic designer and the video editor with the skill set of being able to create with AI, then what one graphic designer could, what five graphic designers could do, one
Yeah.
graphic designer can now do with AI. So it's like that same team can now do a lot more at scale. Similar with the creative strategist, we've recently actually just included Claude into our entire process when it comes to like script writing and everything like that. So it's now one creative strategist can now create an infinite amount of scripts, can create an infinite amount of concepts, can create an infinite amount of creative briefs for the graphic designer themselves. So it's like AI has now equipped these small pod systems and small pod teams with the ability to be able to create a extreme amount of content for a brand that can very easily take a brand to that 100k, to that 500k a month with such a lean team. Maybe back in the day you did need five different graphic designers and 25 different video editors to be able to supply things at volume that was necessary, whereas now you could half that down to be able to reach
Yeah.
that same amount of value volume.
You've
Sorry,
got
so
to be at
100%.
serious scale to need another pod, pretty much. And it's that pod that
Yeah,
we're discussing, they can service 10 clients in an agency. So it's only the big agencies
yeah,
that really need these like massive teams and whatnot. It's a very interesting. And what you just said as well about like the UGC side of things and the army of creators, and maybe a like for a brand that's very valuable. For an agency, if you are providing that, you might need a UGC manager and whatnot. You might have that.
manager,
And
yeah,
that's sort of like a whole other topic of how you actually then go and
yeah,
build out a team of an army of creatives that can make content for you, which is something we've dipped into a little bit, and it's something that we support a lot of the brands that we work with, but it's not something that we've done a sort of mass scale. But that side of things, and
yeah,
like building an army of creators, having a team of people that make content for your brand, or a group of brands on a consistent basis, I do think it's going to be super valuable, and it's definitely something that I want to lean into a lot more over this year, really. To be honest with you, I do think it's just going to only
yeah.
get more and more valuable with AI growing, AI creatives, UGC creatives, and real people talking about real products is just going to become more and more important in the landscape that we're in.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. And then when it comes to now, let's break down the actual creative strategy, which I think you kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but we'll kind of go back and forth in terms of like the differences and stuff like that. So let's say a creative strategy, um, a new week, a new swing is coming up. What exactly would you say your process is? How are you looking at concepts, angles, formats? What is your way of being able to create a new line of, let's say, ads or creatives for the next upcoming week? How do you break that down?
Yeah,
How do
so
you do that?
for fashion, it's more the uh, the format is. I do think the format holds more weight when it comes to fashion, especially for the brands that we're working with who already do have quite a good understanding of their brand. So one of the main like for the concept, which is in fashion, what is the brand trying to sell? What is the brand trying to achieve? That's sort of like a lot of it is understanding the customer, what we're trying to do, what the brand is trying to sell. So for example, a women's wear brand that's trying to sell like really trendy influencer sort of content, the format matters more because we really do understand who the customer is, and there are different reasons as to why somebody might want to buy this specific product or this specific like item that we're selling, but these are all catalog brands. So these catalog brands, we're constantly trying to test the new products in easy, fast ways. So, for example, say a brand has 50 products, or they're dropping a collection with 10 products in. If we have a flat lay of each one, we're testing which product's going to work best, and then we find, okay,
Yeah.
this product's working really well. We're going to test this product in X, Y, and Z different format as well. Can we get UGC on this product? Can we get all these different styles of content for this specific product because it's a winning product? And then the losing products, it's the same. You're always just trying to sell the product, what the catalog is. So it's not. I wouldn't say it's as much angles because the angle is the brand image, what the brand is trying to achieve, and you're trying to sell people on the brand
Yeah.
rather than why they should buy a crop T-shirt. Like they're buying it because they like it,
Yeah.
because they're buying it into the brand. So how many different ways can we show this product to this specific person so that they like it more? They might like it more on a flat lay than on a model image. So how do we create as many different formats or ways to sell this specific item, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%.
And I
That
think
makes
for
sense. That
for
makes a lot of
on
sense.
your side of things, it's probably different because it's like, okay, if I have um, a specific product, or this is the product. I have one product on my store. You might have five products or so. You need to figure out
Yeah.
different reasons as to why somebody should buy this one product. So it's you
Yeah.
have to figure out,
Yeah.
okay,
Exactly. Yeah.
if this is the concept, this is the angle, this is the specific angle that I want to test for this avatar.
Yeah, yeah, basically. When it comes to the angle architecture or just creating concepts as a whole, we tend to see concepts as like a swing, where it's like, okay, how are we going to position this product for this group of people? So, for example, the easiest way to kind of look at it is, let's say, supplement for runners, right? The supplement remains the exact same. It might just help people with recovery, and it might just help people in terms of a bit more energy. Let's say a energy and recovery supplement for runners. The way that we scale out a concept would be one concept would be for, let's say, a runner who's trying to beat their marathon personal best. That's concept one, and then concept two might be a runner that's trying to run a faster 5K. Now, although it's the exact same product, the way in which we position and market the product for those two customers are very, very different, just because their pain points are very, very different. And now, if we try to sell the product a bit too broad in a way that it helps recovery and helps your energy, that's where you kind of miss the mark as a brand, simply because it doesn't feel tailored enough for the customer's pain point. And that's one thing that we kind of continue to see in terms of like brands and like messaging and stuff like that, where you want to be broad enough that you're capturing a large total addressable market, but as a brand. However, in the messaging itself, you want people to come across an ad and feel like that's me. You want people to come across an ad and feel like this is going to solve my exact problem. And with Meta and its targeting currently, and its Andromeda targeting currently, Meta is able to do that because it's all down to the creative. On the actual media buying side, it's very, very, everything is broad because it comes down to
Yeah.
what is the creative saying. If the hook for the creative says, um, 3 ways to cut down your 5K time by 5 minutes, that's going to go towards people who are running and continuously seeing content around 5Ks. Whereas if your hook then changes towards something that is more around marathon training, marathon prep, then realistically it goes to a completely different audience. So now when it comes to the concept, that's where we're kind of breaking down, okay, what are the like, this is the product, what are the possible types of people that could also use this product, and how can we build out marketing angles, and how can we build out specific messaging for each group of people. Now realistically, another concept might be general runners who don't really look at 5Ks, don't really look at marathons. They just like going for runs and they enjoy running. However, they dislike the recovery part of it. So that's where that's concepts number three, where it's here's a supplement that really helps the recovery for you to enjoy something that you do on a daily basis. So again, you trying to speak to that customer, talking about personal bests and marathon running will completely miss the mark and just won't resonate and cause them not to purchase, even though your product is perfect for it, exactly their pain point. So that's how we're kind of segmenting concepts to actually build out these, and that's kind of like the creative strategist job. It's like, who are the possible people we can speak to and how can we speak to them. And then when it then comes to, I'd probably say on the flip side with fashion, the format is then the last thing that we kind of look at, where it's okay, we tend to test format in, we have like a gradual way of creating formats. The first part is like a
Easiest
static, because that's the
to
easiest way
make,
to
yeah.
be able to see whether this resonates and hits or not. There's no point really doing a full 3 minute script for someone to sit, have a ton of B-roll with a ton of editing if we don't know if this is gonna hit. So realistically, we test things first with statics. We test things first with short videos, so like relatable videos, with just a bit of text over the top. And then once we start to see, we're able to look at things like soft metrics, like click-through rates, like hold rates. Okay, how much is this piece of messaging resonating? And then once we see that it is, that's where the iteration and the format
Important.
becomes more important, because it's now a case of how can we take this piece of messaging about improving your 5K time and getting it in as many formats as possible. And that's where like the variations and the volume really comes into play. But initially it does come from a place of testing the different formats. So for like a brand that is like quite early on, that they don't know who their personas are, they don't know who to actually sell their product to, because their product can help a myriad of different people, trying to categorize all the different types of people and grouping them together by what they're doing or what they want, and then realistically seeing who it resonates the most with. The thing about the area that we're in is you don't need 50 different avatars and 50 different concepts to hit. You only need one or two. So realistically, going from that 10K to 100K, you just need one group of people that really resonates with the product. Now, if that's a 5K time, if that's the 5K time people, you just build a ton of volume for your, as to how your product really solves that problem. And that one avatar and that one concept and that one persona itself can really scale you when done correctly at volume. So that's kind of the way that we kind of look at things when it comes to
Yeah.
concepting and building out ads for, let's
Because
say,
this,
CPG brands.
because what I understand is like, so say the avatar, the primary avatar is
Yeah,
runners, but then you have
yeah,
people that are running and they're running for a marathon. That is a specific pocket
yeah,
of people within the big addressable market. But then you also have people who
yeah,
they're runners, but they've never ran before, they just want to run. And that's a
yeah,
whole different persona
yeah,
than the person here. But
yeah,
you can make a static ad for this person and a static ad for this person and go, okay, cool. Our supplements were people bought here more than they did here. So now let's make a video going into the details of how we can help this person more. Because the time is then not wasted in
yeah,
that area. And like that, I think
yeah,
that's what the biggest difference is. Like when you've got one product, you're trying to figure out why people want to buy your product. But with like a fashion brand that
yeah,
has 50 products, we already have the vision of the brand. This is what we're trying to achieve. It's then putting the product in front of them in as many different ways as possible. So that might be a video, an image, a static ad, a testimonial ad, all these different ways to then target that one individual person because they've got to see this 7 times before they buy it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 100%. And I think coming from my perspective in terms of a fashion side of things, how would you say that you? Yeah, let me ask the question first. How would you say that you kind of handle retargeting and like objection handling and stuff like that um within the
So
creative
objection
strategy?
handling is like, I mean, so every single brand has it now, but like payment methods and
Yeah.
free delivery over a certain amount of spend, or free item with your order. Like, well, that's more offer than objection handling. But
Yeah.
objection handling, like, we've seen brands that we work with scale to massive numbers on just drops, like pre drop. And it's like, so the objection
Yeah.
handles are like, obviously you want the product in stock, you want fast delivery, and you want all of those things there. And if you have that, it's going to be better. But it's
Hmm.
hard to like measure. And in terms, I guess
Yeah.
the bigger one is offers, like coming up with offers and different
Yeah.
reasons for people to buy, and making the perceived value of your product higher than what it seems to be on the tin. So like free mystery gift over
Yeah.
£100, or all of these sort of things. Buy two t-shirts, get one free. That's where we see massive uplift in terms of like objection handling and
Yeah.
like conversion rate optimization. I guess it's more on the offer side of things than it is free shipping and stuff, that sort of stuff. Like, you want to look at the unit economics. The
Okay.
unit economics is probably the biggest thing in e-commerce, because if you're doing all of this and not making any money, then what's the point? You need to make sure that your unit economics are
Yeah.
in check before you even run an ad, before you run a new offer, before anything. Your unit economics have to be in check, because if your unit economics are in check, you can then come up with much better offers, which make it more desirable for somebody to purchase your item.
No, 100%, 100%, 100%. Because something that we've kind of been building out, let's say on the CPG side, is that kind of like remarketing, retargeting pool, where realistically, a lot of the times, let's say as we segment, because we segment a little bit more in terms of like, okay, here are our top of funnel stuff, here are middle of funnel stuff, and here's stuff that's super bottom of funnel. So usually a lot of the bottom of funnel stuff will just be objection handling in terms of how long does
Okay.
it take to see results. These are just general questions that will be answered, or like how to even use the product in and of itself. Like, these are things that realistically can scale across audiences. And as you mentioned, offers is something that's like really big, where an offer in and of itself can quote unquote be an
Yeah.
objection handle, because that could be an additional reason as to why you should buy. So realistically, it's like that's one thing that we're kind of seeing in terms of, we're not trying to overcomplicate things per se, but let's say when we then look at going back to the concepting that we talked about um, in terms of the creative strategy. Yes, we've got three different buyers. We've got the 5K runner, we've got the marathon runner, and we've got the general runner that kind of likes to just generally run. Now there's different ways where realistically there's the 5 stages of awareness, right? So let's say within one concept that we create of a personal, a marathon runner that's trying to beat their personal best in a marathon, we don't just want to go in creating ads specifically saying buy this product. This product helps you beat your personal best in your run. Like, that doesn't really do anything. Realistically, what we want to do is we want to make the ads very, very top of funnel. We kind of start first with like problem agitation in terms of what are things holding them back from being able to beat their personal best. That might be starting a run with weary legs already. That might be starting a run and having a dip. Like, there's certain moments where they're unable to keep their target times. Like, there's certain specific problems that hold them back that we can then dial in on, and we then introduce the product as a solution. But that really sits as extremely top of funnel, and then the middle of funnel is usually a bit more product aware. So at that point, we can now just go straight into the video, go straight into the marketing, where it's heavily talking about the benefits of our product, and like comparisons from why our product is better than whatever thing that they're currently using. And then when it then comes to bottom of funnel, it then becomes, okay, these are the different offers, these are questions that need answering before someone actually purchases. So even within a concept, we try to cover different awareness levels just to kind of make sure that we aren't going so top of funnel that everything's super top of funnel. But the issue is, a lot of brands also tend to go extremely bottom of funnel, where realistically bottom of funnel can only scale so far. Bottom of funnel without a large enough pool of top of funnel. So if all our ads are objection handling, no one gives a shit about your brand yet. No one cares
There's
about
no objection to
whether
handle
you've
because I
got
don't.
2 for 1. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's no objection to you handle. You're just letting them know that, oh, we've got a new offer happening. So it's like we do try and make sure that even as we do go into these testing, as we do create these concepts, we try to make sure that we've got each kind of awareness stage, not necessarily every single thing filled out, but realistically we've got top of funnel stuff. And even when we now come into like campaign structure in the media buying side, when we do launch something, we launch it within a concept, and we try to make sure that one concept has everything from a top of funnel to a bottom of funnel side, just to make sure, because Meta will optimize at the ad set level. So realistically, making sure that that ad set is filled with creatives across the awareness stage makes it a higher chance that you're able to get enough data back to know whether this is
Yeah.
working or not. Realistically, if we launch the general runner and it's all bottom of funnel creatives, but the marathon runner and it's all top of funnel creatives, top of funnel doesn't create enough reason for people to buy. You might then be skewed by the data to then think that, oh, a ton of people on the but a ton of people in the general runner side really want to buy, when realistically all those ads were flipping offer ads, and that would have worked for everybody. Do you know what I mean? So it's like making sure that even down to the creative side, the ad set side, we are filling the creatives across different awareness levels.
I think
I think
that
I've said
makes
that quite a few
complete
times.
sense when it comes to like a CPG brand or just in general a problem solving.
Yeah,
With
yeah, in
fashion,
general, yeah.
how would you go about what's the difference between a top of funnel and a middle of funnel ad in fashion? Like bottom of funnel, Black Friday, discount, offer. I get that.
Yeah,
But from like a top of funnel perspective, we're probably looking at like generic lifestyle content is not
yeah,
necessarily super
yeah,
product focused. It might show the scenery of where the shoot is as well as the product. It's trying to like sell the brand
yeah,
vision. And then the middle of funnel stuff would be like
yeah,
a flat lay, like super product focused.
yeah,
Here's the product. But it's also like, and if it's somebody that's never seen it before, it's like, okay, that's a nice product because I've never seen this before. And then bottom of
yeah,
funnel would be like, oh,
yeah,
uh, free mystery gift with offer or free shipping over X or whatever
yeah,
the offer might be.
yeah,
And like top of funnel, middle funnel in fashion, I believe can often almost be the same thing because that product, a flat lay image, for
yeah, yeah.
example, can be both top of funnel and a middle of funnel, but it can also be bottom of funnel if you have an offer on it too. So
If you have, yeah,
it's
yeah,
difficult to
yeah,
really, in my opinion, differentiate top of funnel and middle of funnel ads when we're talking about fashion. But I might be wrong on that.
yeah. No, that I completely agree with that. I think exactly what you said, in the sense that top of funnel and middle of funnel can very easily get like
Yeah,
meshed up together. I tend to think of middle of funnel as, okay, we are now aware of the brand. We are now aware of, let's say, this product. Now, why this product in comparison to other brands? So realistically, great middle of funnel creatives that I've been saving actually from the fashion and side, is that's usually where the objection handling comes into place. Where realistically, I saw a great ad recently. I think I shared that with you actually, where a brand had
talking
different
overlay video.
models. A,
It was a voice.
a
Yeah,
token overlays is one of them. Yeah, a voiceover
that's true.
is
Yeah,
a great example. But the one that I was referencing specifically was where
the sizes.
the sizes, that's the one. So it's like, here's what it looks like on
Yeah,
someone as an XL, and here's what
that's
it looks
very
like
true. That's
as a
very true.
medium. That's feels very specific towards like middle of funnel. And stuff like that realistically wouldn't really resonate as like a top of funnel, because you kind of need to already know the brand and what they're selling at that point. So like lifestyle and super generic stuff seem to sit more top of funnel, because they increase the audience pool for people that like the brand, they like the vibe, they like the lifestyle. And then now middle of funnel is more answering those type of questions
That makes a lot of sense. I
specifically.
would definitely say, yeah, I'd agree with that entirely. To be fair, I'd agree with that entirely.
Yeah, yeah. For sure. So now, when it comes to, how would you say, touching on, because we've kind of been a bit more top down in terms of we're looking at the overview of creative strategy. How would you say you are structuring ad accounts from like a media buying perspective in terms of just generally speaking? How would you advise that people structure their ad accounts? How simple, how complex does it need to be? And simultaneously, what would you see the differences are between a singular product ad account and, let's say, like the likes of the clients that you're working with, a brand that has multiple products across different categories? How would you
So
structure all those
this
things?
might, a lot of people might disagree with this. I think campaign
Yeah,
structure is just a load of bullshit. It doesn't matter anymore. It genuinely
yeah,
doesn't matter. The strategy of your
yeah,
campaign structure will never 10x your business. There
yeah,
is basically, if you're worried about your campaign structure, you're worried about the wrong things. You're not focusing on the right things.
yeah,
You're just getting lost
yeah,
in a new here's how you scale your ads video. It does not matter
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah,
Pick a structure that suits you, stick to it, and then figure out how to do everything else that we've spoken about today. Whether that is you know what's working for your brand and you need to get volume for it, or you don't know what's working for your brand and you need to figure out why people should buy my product. That's what you should be focusing on. And
yeah,
they're the two things that can actually 10x for your business. They're the things that can take you from 10,000 a month to 100,000 a month. Changing your campaign structure will never
yeah,
do that for you. However, I needed to get that out of the way. But obviously,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
better campaign structures than others. We keep it very, very, very
Yeah,
simple. We have one campaign, and then we batch ad sets based on what we're trying to test at that specific time. So we have specific
yeah,
campaigns. This is actually interesting. We have specific campaigns depending on what the CPA target needs to be. So, for example, a sale campaign and a sale ad set and also
I'd say, yeah,
we're selling a tracksuit, but we're moving into spring, so we also have summer products. The CPA for summer products, which is shorts and t-shirts, is way lower than the CPA target for a tracksuit because for a tracksuit we're selling at £160, but we're selling shorts and t-shirts for
yeah,
£70. So if we have the same
yeah,
CPA target for tracksuits and for summer sets, we're going to end up profiting crazy on some items but losing money on others. So we've been actually testing
yeah,
separating the ad set by category of what item we're selling. So sorry, SKU. We're
yeah,
separating the ad set by
yeah,
SKU, and then we're able to test the different creatives for those specific products. So for summer sets, we're going to be testing
yeah,
a shoot that we did in Spain, for example. But for winter, for the tracksuit, we might be selling something completely different. So we've been separating things by
yeah,
SKU so that we can understand what the CPA targets are for this collection and this collection and this collection. And that's really it. We
yeah.
have one campaign, multiple ad
And
sets,
I'm
testing different
assuming
SKUs, and then we have the funnel, the creatives in each separate ad set.
in those, yeah. And I'm assuming that's through an ABO so that you can
Yeah, we currently
control
do
the spend.
ABO, and I think when you
Yeah,
get to a certain level and you're trying
yeah,
to really scale aggressively, that's probably might be when you start doing CBO. But at the moment, we are primarily ABO.
ABO. Yeah, no, it makes sense. If anything, actually, I'd actually flip it on that perspective, where usually I tend to see CBO as the most efficient way with low spend, simply because it's at the campaign level. But again, when you're doing it with different CPAs, we do it at like a complete different campaign, because it's at the budget's at the campaign level. But when you've got a bit more money to spend, you have a lot more to be able to put into an ad set, where you can test ad sets at 100, 200, £300 a day as an individual ad set. Whereas when a brand only has £200 to spend, segmenting the ads by ABO makes less sense from our side, simply because that then means you're now creating separate ad sets with £50 budgets, whereas you'd rather just have one ad set with £200, if that kind of makes sense. So we tend to see that as the brand kind of scales, we then move over into an ABO, where we have the ABO, basically where we have ABO, but we're able to put more
I
budget
think the
into
general
the
rule of
ABO
thumb is you want to consolidate budget as much as possible. Yeah.
as much as possible.
Consolidate
Yeah,
budget as
exactly,
long as you're
exactly.
able to test creatives and see what the data is. Um, Pick a structure and then focus on the other things that are more important. That's the general
Yeah,
rule of thumb that we sort of have at the moment, and it's everything works. And whether
yeah,
you're if you're under like £500, probably £1,000 a day, it's like tweaking your campaign structure probably isn't as important as you think. Yeah.
oh yeah, 100%, 100% agree,
I think the
100%
other
agree.
thing as well is
But
picking.
yes,
Sorry,
that's that.
I think the other thing as well is picking a campaign structure that you personally understand and makes sense in your head. Like, don't
Yeah,
jump from one campaign structure to another campaign structure because somebody else said it that was better. Like, what you're
but
makes
it's
sense for
yeah,
you, and logically it makes enough
yeah,
sense, and like naming conventions and these sort of things, just do what works for you, have a system and stick with that.
yeah.
Don't need to jump from one to the
Stick with
next,
that. Yeah,
and actually do have a system. Don't just do anything. Like pick something,
yeah,
have a methodology, have a idea, and stick with that.
yeah. No, 100%. And that's actually something that's so important. Where it's like, realistically, within different ad accounts and different brands,
Yeah.
different things work. So realistically, one structure for one type of brand may not
Mm.
actually work for another brand. It's so long as you have an internal system where you're able to manage, scale, and understand what's going on within that specific brand. So it's like that makes it like for a brand that's got 50 different products and 50 different avatars that's being sold to, realistically, it'd be very different to a single product SKU. For a brand, let's say like one of our core brands, we have one product. Why would you have multiple campaigns? It makes zero sense. Do you know what I mean? The core customer, even as we mentioned, when it came to concepting from the creative strategy standpoint, it all still dials back to the same overall core avatar, which is a runner. So it's like at the end of the day, realistically, who you're targeting is the exact same. There's no point separating things all the way. Whereas, let's say if we were dealing with the likes of a brand spending £1 million a month on Meta across 10 different core products, the structure that you do for that type of brand will be very very different. So you wouldn't just want to map one to one for what's working for a way smaller brand with
Definitely.
a single product to a large retailer and stuff like that. So definitely it is one of those things where it's just like figuring out exactly what structure makes the most sense for both you as a creative strategist and media buyer, but simultaneously that makes sense for the brand and the stage that the brand is at. And then realistically, if the branding starts to scale, and you then have multiple SKUs, multiple avatars, you then restructure the ad account
Based
at
on
that moment in
yeah,
time
exactly,
when that makes
exactly,
sense.
exactly.
Basically,
I
yeah,
completely agree.
yeah.
And then in terms of then yourself as well, like how are you currently positioned as a business, as an agency, as a pool of brands? Like what's your current setup and what's your sort of vision over the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Right now, we're really kind of toying around with the idea of blending brand and performance. That's something that we're really kind of liking. That's because a lot of the brands that we are working with, especially with some of our core brands, there's this nice intersection between this can very much position as a lifestyle brand, as something that is just simply sold as something that works as part of your lifestyle. But simultaneously, there's a huge push on the performance engine that's currently working. So, as an agency, we are leaning further and further towards brands that really do want to focus on their brand side of things and still build the brand. Like they don't want the performance to overshadow the brand that they want to build. So we act as like a growth partner to be able to do that exact thing for them. So when it comes to, so a simple way of putting this would be, for the likes of a premium brand, although we know that offers are gonna flip and rip, we also know that they don't then want to become a discount brand. They want to remain quite premium. So realistically, our targets sit around being able to allow them to maintain the brand image that they want to have, but building a performance engine alongside of that, that kind of works with that. But yeah, as an agency, we are kind of seeing ourselves really intertwining, even in terms of the types of creatives that we're creating, trying to make sure that it still has that brand infused into it realistically. But yeah, realistically, right now we're in a space where we're kind of we started off working with supplement brands, and brands within the CPG space, but we're actually moving towards brands that have that nice lifestyle that's intertwined with it. I think there's a lot more taste that is required to be able to kind of make that work, as that's something that's very much required with fashion. It's not something that you can very simply see as like it's not a problem solution. It takes a level of taste and a level of understanding and creative strategy to be able to make something like that work. So that's somewhere that we're kind of niching towards. We're in a space where we are looking at building our team across the pod system that you've kind of mentioned, where it's getting the reliable graphic designers, reliable video editors that can meet that quality at scale, at volume. And that's something that we're really doing at the moment. But even in terms of the brands that we're launching and our current brands running right now, we're looking at just taking them to that next stage, which is past that 100k a month mark, and really sitting as a seven-figure brand with a reliable creative. And we're really dialing in on our creative strategy and how quickly we're able to go from concept to 50, 60,
Yeah.
70 different ads based off of that one concept as quickly
Yeah.
as possible. Because
Execution.
right now, speed is everything. But basically, so it's like right now with that, it's like speed is everything. So it's like we're really kind of honing in on how quickly can we scale a concept, how quickly can we take a brand, from just idea, to like full formed brand type of thing. Luckily, we are able to, because we do also have like the email marketing side of things. We are also able to dial in on the likes of like retention, because retention is quite big when it comes to CPG. So right now, a lot of our structures with like supplement brands is we're more than happy to sit at a comfortable mark in terms of the acquisition, where we're either breaking even or we're able to hit at that 20-30% MER, but realistically really doubling down on the retention side, making sure that our lifetime value for each customer is quite high. So let's say one of our core brands is like our lifetime value is triple our AOV
Yeah.
in the first 45 days. So realistically, it's like we are able to double down on scaling at break even, because we know that the business as a whole makes sense. And I think that's something that's quite important for a few supplement brands with lower AOVs, simply because trying to get a £5 to £10 CPA in Meta right now is going to be next to it. You're gonna have to be the best of the best marketers in the entire world. Whereas one thing that we're kind of advising, consulting brands is, why not just make sure that as a business your entire thing makes sense. You're not just relying on extremely great media buying. Like you've mentioned earlier on the call, you've got great unit economics. Everything makes sense. You're dialed in on the unit economic side. You've got great product. You've got a great retention scheme. And then from there, we're then able to scale a brand quite quickly on that side of things. But we are looking at really trying to integrate both brand and performance as one. It's kind of our big thing. So what would you say yours is
I think
as
that's
an agency?
like basically making problem solving products but building a brand moat on them. And I think that's like
Yeah.
such an underrated thing to have, because a lot of these brands are just D2C focused, like we just want to make money. And like that's a game that obviously a lot of people
Yeah.
play very well, but being able to build a brand around a product that doesn't usually have a brand, which is what like the Dutch guys are doing very well with their brands, and they're
Yeah,
building
yeah,
boring products into actual brands. And I think it's such a cool concept, like
yeah,
earplugs, and they're having
yeah.
parties and stuff. Like it's such a cool way to make a boring product something cool. And then from my perspective,
Yeah,
me personally as an agency, the main thing we're really trying to absolutely nail is creative strategy for fashion brands. Because I think a lot of brands
yeah,
are trying to build a lot of fashion brands are trying to build amazing brands, and they're
mhm,
trying to build amazing communities. They're doing the brand building stuff, but
yeah,
they're not building the D2C performance engine on the back of it. And that's sort of where we really want
yeah,
to pick apart. We want to take these brands that are doing really, really well organically and then going, okay, but let's turn this into an actual powerhouse engine and add the D2C side of things, the creative strategy, the paid scaling side of things onto the back of what they've built with the organic, the brand, the positioning, the community that they've created. And yeah, we're in a similar position where we're really trying to build out a team, a core team that really understand the brands who we're working with, also the brands that we have in house, and just trying to be the best creative strategists for the paid social fashion brands in the UK. That's really our
for
aim
sure.
as an agency.
For sure. And a question that I kind of have for you actually, in regards to that sector, with fashion brands, how are you currently dealing with brands that the issue that you tend to see with brands in that sector is usually they seem to be the most averse to actually wanting to run paid. For some reason, they tend to want to over leverage on community and over leverage on organic, and they they try to stay away from paid as for as long as possible. So how are you kind of um, approaching brands and getting brands in that space to see the necessity for building
I think
that
it's
D2C engine?
stability. That's I'd probably say
Yeah,
is the one word to answer that question. A lot of these brands rely on huge drops and drop days to make a load of money, and not many brands
yeah,
can do that for a long period of time because it's very trend focused. A brand that has a big
yeah,
drop and they do very well on drop day, and it's like, okay, but like the next drop, they're just going to go to another brand because you've already had your moment. So when you do have momentum, you want to capitalize it on as fast as you possibly can. People, as it's such a
yeah,
small young audience that actually care about these big hypes. Not many brands are able
yeah,
to build and cultivate a cult like following that will genuinely follow you on every single
mhm,
drop that you do for the rest of your brand's existence. It's extremely difficult thing
yeah,
to achieve. Only a few brands have done it. The brands that are actually really doing well and are really scaling are the brands that you don't see doing loud, crazy drops, but they're just constantly churning creative
yeah,
on the back end. They know what their audience wants to see. They have a good product at a good price point with good creatives. And if you do have the community and the brand and the organic skill set to build a cult like audience, and you attach the paid media and the paid strategy on the back of that, you have leverage that like a brand that only has paid media products and price doesn't have, and you've also got something that the organic
yeah.
brands with the big drops don't have. You have both. You're able to
Don't,
use
yeah,
that audience,
exactly.
use that brand that you've built, and actually have an engine that is constantly churning sales for you on the back end as well. So I think stability is the biggest answer, and a lot of brands, they're very proud of the fact
Yeah,
that they've done everything organically, and it's like, well, yeah,
yeah.
great, but like, why wouldn't you want stability and consistency in your business and realistically longevity as
Within your
well?
business,
Like,
yeah,
it's something that if you do
yeah,
have a paid social machine on the back of it as well, you're gonna you're gonna be around for longer. And there's not very many brands, and there are a
100%.
few. Don't get me wrong, that probably reach all the audience that they need organically. And realistically,
Yeah.
that's probably not you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think one of the biggest things, alongside of you, as you've mentioned, like stability being one of those, where it's like you want to, as a brand owner, you want to be able to know not for sure, but you want to be able to have an element of confidence that this is how much the brand is turning over month on month. Whereas when you're relying on organic, when you're relying on a drop day, you really have no idea whether that drop's going to do 20k, whether that drop's going to do 150k, and how are you? How else are you meant to plan the amount of stock that you need? How else are you meant to plan what you're going to do after the job? How else are you meant to plan for everything else outside of just this job? And that's what a lot of these brand owners kind of miss out. And even one of the bigger things that you've kind of mentioned that you touched on is longevity, where it's like there's so many brands that you can name that were hot 2 3 years ago, 2 3 years ago, that you can ask where are they now. And realistically, when they're so reliant on organic is so very trend focused. Whereas when you do plug in that DTC and become, I'd say, quote unquote, a
On
real business,
Instagram.
a real brand, you then, exactly, you're not just an Instagram page anymore. People come back, people grow with your brand. You have all these additional elements that's kind of tied in. You now have, as you mentioned, both the organic and the paid in a way that just makes sure it ensures that your brand is going to be here 10 years from now, and not just relying on the Instagram algorithm. As I think a lot of people that will be watching this will attest to, that you have no idea what's going to do well
Word,
before you post it. So
word
how
of
can
mouth is
people?
great until no one's talking.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So it's like, yeah, the best thing that you can do is kind of secure, let's say, the brand's future by attaching a engine, a paid creative strategy engine to the brand. That way, you at least know that the
Yeah.
brand's not relying on the
And
penny
another thing is
algorithm.
people think paid ads destroys their brand. It's just not true.
Yeah,
It is why does
yeah,
paid ads
yeah,
destroy your brand? I don't. It's genuinely something that I
yeah,
don't really understand. It's like why does I don't get it. Why does paid ads destroy your brand's perception? All you're doing is pushing out what you're already doing to more people, but you're actually paying for it, so it's guaranteed to be shown to the people that want to see it.
yeah, 100%. Because I think the perception is like you want it to be something that's been built by the community. But the issue with that is, again, you are still going to be
Mm,
posting on these platforms, but when you post organically, right, your post is only seen by five,
mm,
6% of your following. So all paid advertisement does is it just ensures everyone sees your platform. Like Mark Zuckerberg and these platforms, as great as they are cutting your reach. They are cutting the amount of people that can see your video. And even if you look at yourself as a customer, how many times have you very simply just you've scrolled past something and you've forgotten the last 3 videos that you've just watched? You have zero clue, and you're relying on like you're building a business that's relying on an algorithm that doesn't prioritize you till you pay. So it's like realistically, it does make the most sense long term. Where all paid ad does is it just ensures that your customers will see your product realistically. But yeah, 100%. It's like there's a lot of brand owners that kind of see it as it ruins their reputation, but I think they're still quite early on in terms of
yeah,
seeing the
yeah.
longevity of things with their brand. Whereas it's like as you kind of develop, as you grow as a brand owner, you realize things like stability are a big thing, things like reach are a big thing, and if you do see yourself wanting to build a brand like the huge organizations that you look up to, a lot of them
Mhm.
do run paid ads.
What you
So
just
yeah,
said that
hundred
as a
percent.
last point is like this is the reason why volume is so important, because as you literally just said,
Yeah,
how often do you watch 3 videos and then forget what you even watched? And that's why that is the literal answer as to why
yeah,
volume is important, because people forget. You
yeah,
have to keep
yeah,
showing up over and over and over again, creating different variations, creating
yeah,
different reasons as to why somebody would purchase your product, because they're gonna have to look at it 5, 6, 7, 8 times until somebody buys it. People, the
yeah,
days of impulse purchasing uh, are leaving us very quickly. You have to give people multiple reasons
yeah,
to buy your product. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
man,
hundred
that was a
percent,
good that was
100%.
a good little catch up, man.
Nah, for sure, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure, 100%, 100%. I think we kind of covered quite a lot in that. We covered, yeah, kind of a good overview in terms of creative strategy. Someone can very easily kind of take this, transcribe this, and build some form of creative
Yeah.
strategy for their own brand. And realistically, if you take anything from this, creative strategy is the most important thing in terms of building your brand, and that is what you should focus on as a brand owner, as a business owner, to go from 0 to 10k, 10k to 100k, and 100k for
Yeah, I
100k
agree. And
further.
it's very often the question that we always ask ourselves as business people is, what is the number one highest leverage task I can complete right now? And it's very easy to get distracted doing tasks that don't actually move the needle. And if you are in a period of time
Yeah,
where you don't know how to get to the next level, you don't know what the next thing is to do, the money's in the research. Go back to the drawing board, understand more about your product, understand why people are buying your product, understand who your customer is, and get better at creative to serve the people that are buying your product more. And that is, if you're able to do that and repeat it over and over again, I think you're going to be a very rich person. Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. But yeah,
Yes,
it's been a
bro.
lovely catch up, bro. We'll definitely have to do this
Definitely,
again.
bro. I need to do this on a regs,
Um,
man. There's
yeah,
shots up, man. It was good.
nah, for sure.
It was good. I enjoyed that. Let me
Nah, for sure.
let me stop the recording.